February the 6th, day 2.
Day 2, okay.
Hard appliances.
Yeah, this is the day of making the hard appliances, to determine how to make them correctly, and so you don't have to adjust for hours at the chair and get them to fit. Okay. So in understanding what happens to the jaw when you're doing these appliance therapies, the jaw wants to come down because in most cases they're either superior in the fossa or they're superior and distal in the fossa. So you relax the muscles, they want to come down, they're going to come forward to some degree. Now if they're a deep class 2, they're going to come forward a long ways. If they're moderate class 2, they're not going to come forward so much, you're going to be mostly vertical. Now if you're treating somebody who is a deep class 2 and you know they're going to be down and come forward, what happens when they chew on the hard appliances, they're chewing with your 4 centric stops on the posterior, and the jaw's wanting to come forward, and so they're putting a lot of pressure back on the appliance when they're chewing, because their jaw is constantly coming forward. So they're putting a lot of pressure back on, and that appliance will push on the 6 anterior teeth. Okay, if they're a deep class 2, they're going to push a lot, and these people are going to get sore anterior teeth. And so what do you do about that? You can't relieve them enough so they won't get sore. So on those people, I make 2 unilaterals. I make one for one side and one for the other side. And deep class 2s come down and come forward, and you don't have much room up here for a whole arch appliance to hit because they're really thin in the front. So I'll make one on each side. And on those I use ball glass. I'll use 3 ball glass on each side, and I'll make them out of ortho acrylic if they can tolerate that. And I put the top of the acrylic either with super T or composite filling material. Okay, that way you don't have all this tension in these front teeth. But the average person, when they're not moving far, you have to relieve, when you make the appliance, you have to relieve the front teeth with a spacer. And I use this real thin. It's what you use for fluoride trays. You know, you want to coat the teeth and have a little space for the fluoride. You know, that's what they do. You know. Anyway, it's a real thin composite, and you just coat a real thin coat on the 6 anterior teeth.
Where?
The whole tooth.
Oh, the whole
Is that block out?
Yeah.
Block out. It's real thin block out acrylic.
So when you say you make 2 appliances, you make 1 appliance and then just cut it in half?
No, I make 2 separate ones.
Why do you do 2 separate ones?
Because I don't want to, if they're a real deep class 2, I make 2 separates because of the anterior teeth.
You want to have the anterior be on both of them?
They're going to go from bicuspid back on each side because they're going to come so far down and forward. You're not going to have room for their front teeth. They're going to be edge to edge up here, not have room for the hard appliance. And secondly, they're going to have so much force back, they're going to get their front teeth sore. So you don't want those in the appliance. So you just use the posterior.
So this is
Okay.
for...
That's just for a rare case where they're real deep.
Well,
class
Joseph,
two.
what about, is Joseph going to...
No, he's not going to need that.
Okay.
So you're going to make a standard hard appliance for him.
So when you say,
But you got to remember, you have to relieve the 6 anterior teeth with this blockout stuff, and that way when you put the appliance in, it's going to snap right down and feel comfortable. If you don't do that, you're going to snap it in, and then you say, does it push on your teeth anywhere? Does it hurt your teeth? And they're going to say, all my front teeth hurt. Then you're going to grind and grind, and then you're going to say, well, it hurts here. Now it hurts over here. Well, now it hurts over here. Now I think it's over here. And you grind and grind and grind and grind. And finally, you get the front teeth so they're happy. Okay. But if you put that little spacer in there, I've just learned this by doing it, by making all the mistakes. Just learned this little spacer in there, and then they just snap right on.
So you're going to show us how
When
you
they
do
got-
that
when
on
they
that
got-
model?
Then when they got a crooked tooth like this one has this crooked tooth here,
Yeah.
right where this crooked area is, you make the spacer just a little thicker than anywhere else.
What was the
Because,
spacer material?
it's called light curable resin by
Light-
Spectrum Dental.
Yeah, you can use, and you
can use any flowable,
You can use
right?
any flowable.
Yeah, any
real-
flowable.
Yeah, this isn't real expensive, and it flows out of there, and you can put it on. We'll go through that how you put it on right now.
It-
Yeah. So you.
It's
this
a
only a deep
laboratory
plastic?
product, so it's cheaper?
He does it for
No,
every
it's just
hard
a-
appliance.
It's just a.
Oh, yes.
Every one of them.
Huh?
He was asking you just for the deep bass, and you do this for the anteriors of every hard
Every hard appliance. Because.
Because they all feel
otherwise-
that that's where they're all
Otherwise, they
tight.
don't fit right. They're gonna be forever trying to get these things to fit right.
It'll be always too tight down in here.
Always too tight.
I'm gonna zoom in on that and you're gonna keep it some general
So,
area.
I just take this stuff and it's real thin, almost watery, and it comes out.
Block out,
It's a
really all day.
block out acrylic, you know, and it's just,
If you'd go ahead and do it over those edges that had bubbles and a little chip, that'd be great too.
yeah, when you have these little square areas, we had some chips on this tooth that's in the lingual version. We're gonna put a little extra in there and in here, and you just block this stuff out,
Done?
and,
And then you're gonna show me that facial side in a moment, please.
yeah, you
A
start
second.
blocking it out. And,
It's aggressive, but it doesn't make any difference. I've seen him do it.
yeah, it's,
And you use this if you're gonna have one
yeah,
solid
the way-
appliance
the way you make most of
instead
your,
of two
the way you
separate.
make most of your appliances, is this stuff.
Mhm.
You get it real thin on the inside, because most of the pressure's on the outside. It's just the way this stuff cures, you know, everything shrinks and changes from heat to cold. I don't care what we're using, processing benches,
You know, somewhere in some write-up I saw a photograph that's labeled Jim Carlson appliance. And it had two unilaterals like this with a ortho wire level arch.
yeah,
across.
yeah, that was the one that he had made in the lab.
So what about using just a wire?
I don't like to use metal in the mouth whenever I can get away with it. That's why I've designed these appliances, they don't have any metal in them. A lot of people react to metal, and especially putting metal across the midline. So the old Willie Mae appliance was ortho acrylic on the top here with a bar in the middle. And there's two problems with that. You got metal across the midline, and secondly, you got metal in here, and you're hitting on your bicuspids, and after a while, if they wear these for any length of time, they start depressing their posterior teeth.
They do?
Okay,
Oh, I see.
okay. Now, if you've got a full coverage up here where you're getting proprioceptive feedback to the cuspids on the lower, from the all plastic or acrylic or vinyl, you don't depress the posterior teeth. I've never with this type of
Yeah.
appliance depressed the posterior
On
teeth.
the other hand, if they're at the right vertical dimension, they're not gonna be depressing.
Yeah, if you get everything right, so the whole system is neurologically sound, myofascial pain is sound, you got structural balance, they don't have a tendency to push those teeth down.
So you said if it covers the
But Willie
cusp-
Mae started all this, but he had no idea where level was.
Right.
You know, when he was building the house, he didn't have any sighted to make the foundation level. It was all guesswork. What his eyes could see, and your eyes are gonna fool you. That's why I like the Acculine, because now you're out of the guesswork. You can get neuromuscular balance.
So what about, Runar, the two-piece laminate material? It's got the spinal on the inside and the harder on the outside.
Well, I've used that, but I never saw any point in it.
Well, they could, you'd have a lingual bar that's vinyl material.
I've done it with all that kind of material, and for me, this just works. I've used almost everything you can think of in these appliances, and this system just seems to work. I mean,
Help me with what we were just talking about the
Well, you-
cuspids. So when you split the appliance,
okay,
the cuspids are active in those deep class 2s anyway, huh? They're gonna become active even if you don't have them covered.
right, if the appliance covers them.
Yeah.
If the appliance covers them, you're chewing on the appliance, you're getting proprioceptive feedback through the appliance to the cuspids. That's your main proprioceptive feedback to the brain.
So when you do the 2 bilaterals, do you cover the cuspids?
Yeah,
Okay.
I try to get the cuspids in there.
Gotcha.
At least the distal part of the cuspid or cuspid coverage, if I can. Just something onto the cuspid, so when they're chewing on these things, you're getting feedback through the cuspids.
If you'll show me that, just hold it steady in detail. Let me get closer.
This is what it looks like when it's ready to go, and then we set this. We just use your, whatever you use.
Light cure.
I use my chair side light just to cure it, you know. And you can,
I'm turning.
No,
Yeah.
ortho add-on, ortho appliance add-on.
yeah.
Pro-Den system, is that what you
And
said?
there's got, you know, standard stuff for doing denture work, partial work, anything like that. Really might work.
Elgin.
Huh?
Elgin.
Yeah.
It's an Elgin.
Some else good. And it comes thick, you mix at least 50% water with it to thin it down. You know, sometimes more than that. And when that,
Did you get a look
that
at it?
ought to be done now.
It's done.
You mix 50% water.
Yeah, you don't use it straight, it's too thick.
He's getting ready to
And then you just,
go right there.
Let me take this
you
off.
take this stuff and you
Yeah,
coat.
would you turn it off, please?
You coat especially where you've put that acrylic on there, because when you pull your appliance down, you don't want it to stick to the spacer you put in there. And then I use this stuff across my model.
Trash cans
You know,
over there. Is that what you mean?
Another thing that works good is Pam from the grocery store.
might work just, same stuff, I don't know.
It's liquid less.
Yeah. And I just coat the teeth with this, and then we're ready to pull down the vinyl material to start the hard appliance. And that's the way you start them. And then if you got the little clippers, you clip this stuff. You got this little piece in here. You want to get that out of there because it's hard to pull the plastic down. Now I always make all my models. I make horseshoes. Because if you have a flat part up in here, you don't think things don't pull down on the linguals. They're all horseshoes. If they're full coverage, if you got bases on your models, then you got to cut a hole in there so they'll suck down right.
And we've done that and drilled the hole, just one hole in the middle.
Yeah,
and
one hole in the middle
it
is all
worked.
it takes.
It works
You gotta-
fine.
Yeah, and the thinner they are this way, the better they pull down. You know, real thick, you know, you pull them down, they're thinner off where the teeth are. So the thinner this thing is, the thicker your appliance is going to be when you pull it down. You got more room to work with it, and it's stronger. Okay.
If you have long teeth back here, you still have to block out those undercuts, right?
Yeah, if you've got
Kill the molars,
yeah, if you've got
dentures, spaces.
long teeth with bulges and maybe they got lingual version in them, you got big spaces under here. I'll take this stuff and
Fill
block
in.
out a lot of those because you want that thing to come down. If they got teeth that are real and lingual version, you got a lot of undercut here. When you put them in, you're going to have to cut that hard acrylic halfway up the tooth. You can't put it all.
And
way
on the
down.
lingual, if you cut it halfway up, then it's a tongue issue.
Yeah. But I've had them where they're halfway down the teeth, so you can pop one and off, and if you smooth them out, the tongue doesn't care. That's long, you just want them to be snap-on so they stay on. You want to snap on tight enough so they can chew with it. You know, if it's too loose, it pops in and out, but you want it too tight to where it makes the teeth sore.
How mandatory is it that they chew with it, that they eat with it?
It's only if they want to get better.
And that's the only thing that's
That's the only
required, huh?
criteria.
Only if I want to get better.
Only if they want to. If they don't care about getting really well, they just want a little bit relief. Then they don't have to chew with it. You know, but
I hear you.
One thing I might suggest, I always, on the master cast duplicated with reversible hydrocolloid, which you can heat up in these days in a microwave.
Yeah.
You guys know?
yeah.
Oh, you
But
can
what
just-
I do, for all my hard appliances, the impression material I use for taking, when I'm going to do a hard appliance, I want that thing really accurate, so when it snaps on, I don't have to mess with it. So I use the silicone putty. You know, you get them in big tubs that you mix up. Accelerator and base, you know, you mix it up, and I make a tray to fit the mouth, okay, and then I relieve it, and then I take the same steps you use for crown and bridge, for getting your final impression, and I reline that thing and I put it in. Then I can pour that up and I can make 2 or 3 or 4 models. Because the first one you make is going to destroy your model usually. You're going to break teeth off when you separate that thing. So now if you have 2 or 3 more models, you've still got something to work with. You can go back to it. So I like doing the silicone impressions for the hard appliances because now I've got 2 or 3 or 4 models, as many as I want. Because when I break teeth off, I don't have to have the patient back and take another alginate.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
but the lab reversible hydrocolloid is a tenth the cost of silicone.
Yeah.
That's what the lab tech uses.
Yeah.
And you can get a version now from Flexite company
Yeah.
that is a powder, and you mix it in a
Bowl.
water, and you
Yeah.
put it in the microwave to liquefy it. and it's real cheap, and it's
You can pour it up 2 or 3 times,
5-6 times.
can you?
Yeah,
Okay,
but
that's good.
it's a little bit of work, you know, after it's set up and you take the model out, you've gotta cut it all up
Yeah.
into small pieces to get it to dissolve again quickly in the microwave.
Well, you have to do it again.
You had to
Yeah,
cook
yeah,
it, you
yeah,
had to
it's a
recook it,
reversible
remount it.
hydrocolloid.
Okay, so you're duplicating your model.
Yeah.
That's what they're using in
Yeah.
labs. See,
Yeah.
what are you taking your
But
model?
in the commercial labs, they have a great big huge machine,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
several
But are you
$1,000s.
taking your original model with alginate then? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the stone set up, and then you
Yeah.
take the model out and you put it in a duplicating glass.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a laboratory product.
Yeah. That's gonna take me too much time. I'm gonna take a silicone impression and pour it up about 4 or 5 times real quick.
Yeah.
When I have time, and that's it. You know, I don't like to spend time doing stuff, and I don't like to fiddle with anything more I like to fiddle with. I like it simple. That's, you know, so you can do it that
Okay.
way, that's fine with me. Any way to get 2 or 3 models that are real accurate.
So you use, after you put the putty in the stock tray, you put it in the mouth, you take it out, and then you run a burr to cut
Yeah.
out the tooth outline,
Usually it's scalpel.
teeth outline.
No, these burrs that trim flexite are the only ones that work good that trim that out. These things are, that's why I have them in my office.
Trim what out, the
I
stuff?
use them to adjust flexite dentures,
Uh-huh.
and I use them to trim out my models when I've done putty, silicone-based stuff, and I'm making a custom tray.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna take a wash, you know, real light body silicone, so I get detail. I trim all my trays with one of these. They're the only thing that trims them well, this type of a cutter.
Do we know what that is exactly?
From Brassler.
It's a, Brassler makes them, a lot of companies make them. You
Brassler
look-
blue.
You look in the catalog, you'll see, they're a very distinct design. Look at that and see what kind of
Double
design
cross
that is.
cut.
Double cross cut.
It's called a flexite burr.
Well, I call it the flexite burr. It's the
Yeah,
only
we don't
thing,
know
I'm
what
telling
it
you, it's
is.
the only thing that's gonna cut flexite the way you wanna cut it if you're doing flexite partials. None of the other burrs cut that stuff. And you use it real slow speed. If you turn it up too high, you melt the flexite.
Yeah.
You use it real slow speed and it just cuts it and polishes it. Okay, and then this is what that same burr, and I've got a narrow one and a fat one, depending on how much I'm gonna cut out. And that's what I do for all my crown and bridge. Take all my crown and bridge patients, full arch impressions, putty base, cut it out, and a wash with a light, real light cure silicone. And I do the same thing for these. I want these things really accurate when I'm doing a hard appliance, because they fit so much better. And all you gotta do is take some alginate impressions, and then take some silicone impressions, make the same person an appliance, and the one you make after you've taken that silicone impression is gonna snap on there super nice, and the other one gonna just kinda squeeze on there. It's just a difference, because this stuff really fits, you know. So then,
So the silicone impression material is a light cure, the impression material?
No.
no, it's a regular set, just like you do for crown and bridge.
PVS
But I can
impression.
report it several times,
He's
it's
talking
very
about
accurate,
it's
that's
a
what I
putty
want for a
wash.
hard appliance, really accurate. In the posterior here.
It's not a vinyl siloxone, it's an old fashioned.
No, it's vinyl,
Oh.
the newest stuff, whatever it is, you know.
But it's just a putty rather
Just a
than
putty and-
3M
body
I
rather
think-
than.
Yeah, but
3M is-
you
makes
reline
it
it,
very
It's
right?
a heavy body putty, and then I reline it with the lightest,
Or light
with
body.
the light body,
not-
with a
not
real
light
light
cure.
body. It's the same thing I do to pick up my final impression for crown and bridge. It's really accurate, I like that. These things fit so much different when you do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm gonna get out the material we use to pull these down. We got 2 sizes in here. You got the same sizes, you got the same sizes. 0.08 hard pull down material. 0.08 hard pull down material. And then you got the, which is 2 millimeters, and then you got the point 120, which is a 3 millimeter pull down.
What size was that again?
Huh?
What size was it?
0.08 and 0.12 in the hard pull down. And you can get
The
a, you
2 and
can
3 millimeters is before it's sucked down.
before it's sucked down.
After
That's the
it's sucked
thickness
down.
of the disc. After it's sucked down, it's thinner. you know.
So what's this Essex material, this various?
You know,
Essex company?
Runar, you ought to make a materials list so that after the course we can go over materials, and then we could learn how to do a guard today.
I made out a materials list.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
here
then once you
somewhere.
guys get his materials list, and then we can look at how we make the supplies.
Yeah, yeah. I got a materials list for the appliances.
Thank you.
That's probably why we're here.
It's written up here somewhere, we got it,
I got
still
it.
You got it
I'll
up, he's got
find
it
it.
out front, yeah. Okay, most of the time, I use a .08, okay? Some of the time I'll use the .12. It's stiffer, harder to get off on the model, but for long term, and if these people are bruxers and clinchers, you want something pretty hard, and this is a little thicker, and it's a little more stable, the .12, so I'll use that on those people. But for the average person, I'm gonna use the .08. If they're gonna wear this thing for 3 or 4 years, I'm gonna make it out of the .12, and then I'm going to, and it's gonna be stiff enough so that I can put composite on top of it from my vertical. If I use the .08, it flexes a little bit, and so I'm gonna use Super T on top. Super T will stay bonded with a little flex, composite won't. So if I know I'm gonna build the occlusion up with composite, I'm gonna use the .12, because that's not gonna flex much, the composite will stay on there without popping off. That's kind of the criteria which one you use.
Well, if you have to add the Super T, you think you're gonna have to
When
add
you-
Super
If
T?
I'm gonna use Super T, I'll use the .08.
You know you're gonna be adding to it, you know you're gonna be
But
adding
I
to
know
these.
if I'm gonna be making the top out of acrylic, it takes them 3 or 4 hours to get to my office, and I don't wanna have them come back every 2 weeks to add to them. They're a bruxer or a clincher. I'm gonna use the .012, and I'm gonna put acrylic composite on top, because that thing's gonna last there for 6 months or 8 months or a year. And I don't have to touch them once I get it balanced. Super T is a little softer, a little kinder to the muscles and all that. Super easy to use, you know, and if they're close by and I'm gonna be monitoring them, I know I'm gonna be adding and subtracting or whatever, I'll use the Super T on there.
Super T is a composite?
There's
Yeah,
some right there.
Powder
That's it,
liquid,
right?
metals of-
Powdered liquid, it's a powdered liquid, and it sets in about a minute and a half. Sometimes you hardly have time to get to and I do this when I add it at the chair, when I add stuff at the chair, you just got time to get to the chair and get it in, there's no fooling around.
Shine, I think, has it.
Well, I don't.
Well, we don't
I'm-
correspond from China.
But I get it from Burkhardt Dental Supply up there.
Try Burkhardt.
But,
You're right.
anyway, but that Super T is what I do most of them. After I get them balanced, and I know they're gonna be going long-term, I'll cut the Super T off and I'll use composite on there. Keep them balanced long-term. This stuff you gotta change every 3 or 4 weeks. You gotta add to it. But it's, you know, for the initial appliance, I usually use that because I know I'm gonna be adjusting the occlusion, they're gonna be changing a lot, and that stuff's real easy to use. Okay. Composite's not that easy to use. But after I get them really balanced, I usually switch to the composite. That's long-term. Because I don't finish a patient, I don't even think about finishing a patient less than 18 months. I won't do any restorative dentistry or anything like that on anybody less than 18 months. There's too much change taking place in the joints, remodeling of the fossa, remodeling of the condyles, muscles changing. I don't even think of it for 18 months, and a lot of people it's 3 years.
This uses
I
just.
learned that the hard way, because I restored a bunch of people too early, and they were the real sensitive people. The general dentist, the guy's not got real problems, he's not got all the pathology that we're dealing with this kind of people. You know, you can do almost anything to them and it works. But you got some sensitive person you're treating from myofascial pain syndrome, and you finish them, and 6 months later they go, well, this just doesn't feel right. My neck is starting to hurt again. Oh God, I gotta add a 1/2 millimeter to this to get you balanced again. Now they're all in porcelain. How do you add a 1/2 millimeter to the porcelain? You say, I'm gonna cut all your crowns off and start over, it's another $12,000 or $15,000. They're gonna say, what? And I learned it the hard way. I finished people before I knew anything really in depth about this, 35 years ago. And they came back and complained. You finished me, but now I'm starting to get bad again. You told me I was gonna be okay. You know, I said, well, you changed a lot. It's your fault.
He aged.
Did you
Yeah,
change?
you
Did you
lived
change
that-
since I saw you
You
last?
lived another 2 years since we
And so-
started.
And so now I'll tell you what'll solve your problem. I'm gonna make a little appliance, a little soft diagnostic appliance. And you get to wear that at night when you go to bed, and it'll give you all the relief you need, then you'll do just fine. And they say, oh, good. And so I make it, I don't charge them for it, and I put it in there and they do fine. Because they're real close, they're just not right on. But now they're in an appliance forever. Because I finished them too soon.
Do you make them a soft or
forever
a
is
A
hard?
No.
soft hard appliance, soft appliance, the
Soft.
diagnostic appliance.
They probably don't
A
mind that.
1 millimeter diagnostic appliance,
Hmm.
you know, and they do well, because I had them real close to start with, just not right on.
Mhm.
And, so now, since I've been waiting a little longer in finishing them, most of those people don't have to wear appliances ever. That's the difference.
So,
You just
so-
found that the 18 months is kind of a critical, you just
Yeah.
found it just really takes that
Yeah,
long.
It
and-
really takes that long. And I had some patients, we were taking, tomograms on them, and then finish them up orthodontically, appliances, and orthodontically, and then 3 years later, take them in and take a new tomogram, and the whole fossa conda has changed in contour. The whole thing's remodeled.
so during that time, they wear your temporary,
Yeah, they wear some kind of an appliance.
they wear your temporary crowns and bridge, or do they?
Well, you can do it any way you want. A lot of those people are in temporary crowns.
Right,
Yeah.
but do you try to build your temporary crowns and bridge to this level of exactness, or do you try to compensate it with the appliance and then?
No, I'm building, if I'm gonna put the composite crowns on, they're right to where I want them.
Okay.
Where I think I want them at
Okay.
that time.
No appliance there?
The reason I
that's
like
it.
the composite, because if they change, I can just go in there and add to it. It's real simple to add composite to top the composite.
Nothing's ever permanent in sense.
No,
Yeah.
all you gotta do is micro etch the top a little bit, take a little bonding material on your finger, wipe the tooth, and then wipe it off, and then put your composite on there and set it. And
Wipe
it's
it off
there.
and blow it off, any difference?
Yeah, blow it off. Blowing it off doesn't get as much off, and I like as little air as possible. Yeah, so I like to do things fast and quick and easy. It's real easy to put a little bonding on your finger, wipe the top, wipe it off, and then start putting your composite on. You know, it's just real fast. I just learned how to do dentistry by the carload real fast and real good. So that's the way I do things. You can do it your way. I don't care how you do it.
Making sure your contacts are open, they can floss through there and everything. I mean, that's the whole point, right? That's
Oh, you.
That's, oh,
Contacts?
you've never, oh, you've never done that and left them closed, have you?
You never had excitement until you start bonding these crowns on, and you get a little bonding and stuff in between the teeth,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're set,
Yeah.
and now you gotta get this patient flossing again. That's really exciting. I found out ways to do it, you know, at the chair, you know, that work real good, so I can floss afterwards. You know. After I spent hours trying to get people back in shape, I learned how to do it with real thin metal stripping, you know, and then getting the material on there and then flossing continually,
Yeah.
and it works. You know, but a few times before I learned anything, it was really a tough deal. You know, anyway.
How thin the metal stripping?
Bill, is there any?
Thin as I can get, yeah. Thin as you can get, real thin.
Where do you get that?
Well, it's just band material. For
Oh,
doing
okay, the
real-
thinness of like 1/1000th of an
Yeah,
inch?
yeah, real thin
Okay.
band
So
material.
they call them hole bends?
Yeah, whatever.
Michael
And then-
Hole.
Yeah, and then you just take a little flat instrument and separate the tooth and slide that stuff down there. And if you're putting your composite teeth on top, you get the metal in there to the height of the marginal ridges.
Right.
Then you put your other stuff on top, and when I bond composite crowns to the top of the teeth, I take the same composite, mix it thin with a little bit of the bonding agent, spatula it out till it's thin, coat the inside of that thing, set it on there and let it ooze out around there, and I floss several times. My girl holds the tooth on, and then I floss up and down till the flosser really easy, then I set it. And then I go and trim it up, and it worked real slick that way, then I pull the metal out. If you don't do the metal thing in between the teeth, you're gonna get some, no matter what you're gonna get some bonding down there, and then you got a problem. You gotta get a separator in there and strip it and all that, you know.
Doesn't that band create an open contact issue?
No, because your contact's in your composite at top.
The crown,
Composite is in your crown material. You know.
so you had the, he already has the composite crown he's putting on the tooth,
Put
so already had a
composite on
contact.
the teeth. The contact
It's like
is
bonding
the
a
contact is in the
ceramic
groove.
inlay or something,
Yeah.
if you use a band.
And it's not thick enough that it opens the
Okay.
contact on your teeth. And actually, when you take that out, that creates a little separation in the teeth. When you take that out, your composite crowns just snap together and you got real tight contact. You don't have to worry about putting contacts on the composite teeth you're putting in.
Okay.
Because when you pull that metal strip out of there, it's just that little few thousandths of an inch allows that composite to come together and you got real tight contact.
Okay.
So what you call a composite crown is really a big overlay.
Just a big overlay bonded on top. I make them myself in the lab, polish them up, they look real nice. It's just composite material. And I like them because they don't ever come off. Get them bonded right, I've never had one come off, I don't think. The only ones I've had come off are bonded to porcelain or gold. I micro-etched to porcelain, I micro-etched to gold. Those are the only ones that ever come off. I got a lot of those on there that stay on there, but once in a while they pop off, re-micro-etch and put them back on. Okay.
And you'd have a fit, you say Grandio wears very well, you'd like.
Yeah,
prefer
Grandio
that.
works real good, I like that. And polish them real good on top, you know, brownies, greenies, and then the brushes, you know, the brushes have their diamond impregnated brushes, you know, for polishing. Them nice glassy on top. You don't wear off the opposing teeth much with that. Once you get, a lot of guys are telling me, I don't know, put composite crowns on there, man, they just wear the top teeth off, they wear the opposing teeth off, just like porcelain, people say. I say, well, they used to do that until I got neuromuscular balance, now it doesn't do that anymore. They're not killing their teeth all the time if you got balance in there, so they're not wearing everything off. If you don't get them balanced, yeah, they'll be grinding all night and they'll wear things off. Composite will wear a natural tooth right out, you know. You don't get much of that if you got them balanced. Okay.
So-
The material I found that I think is really hard is this laboratory material from SB called Symphony.
Yeah.
Uh,
And people test out good
And
for
it's
it?
flowable. It's a flowable, you know, it's made for, it's a laboratory product.
Yeah. But is it biocompatible
Yeah.
where people test out good for it?
They don't, they can't taste anything.
No, but I mean, you test them arm reflex and test their compatibility of their body and see if they can handle the stuff. I test everybody arm reflex to see if they handle the product. A lot of products, people can't handle. So I search around for those they can handle.
Let's get back to our appliance. Are we gonna, you spray that before you put it on, or you?
We're gonna pull this down, and I put the all coat
Except-
on there,
Okay,
you know. And so now we're gonna pull it down and cut out the appliance.
so we're gonna load it up
We're gonna put it
and.
up,
Felix?
gonna turn that on. And,
If I could,
he's out of town, and you're not gonna see him a whole lot, I don't.
012, please.
012, I'm gonna use.
Thank you.
Yeah, it would be nice to have two models, you know.
And the reason is that that might break.
We might
It's gonna break
we
at
might
some
break
point,
these.
come
Now,
on.
we're gonna put a good,
We've already broken 1, 2, 3.
yeah, we're gonna put some more all coat on this before we pull it down, and it'll help it slip off easier, and maybe we don't break teeth.
Because you want to make them a second appliance?
We have the choice.
Well, I don't wanna make him a second one, but if this thing breaks and he has the problem with the appliance and you gotta repair it or anything, now you don't have a model.
Plus, if you're gonna adjust the coming on and off of it,
Yeah, if
You
you
can't
take it
do
off
it
once the
with
teeth
the
are
model
broken,
is
you can't
broken.
do that once the teeth are
So,
broken.
so can you take a silicone?
We take a silicone, yeah.
Impression of
Can
this?
we
Well,
take a
it's not gonna be
silicone?
very accurate.
No?
Huh?
No, we don't, you know, I
We
mean,
take
if
a
you had the
silicone
lab stuff you're
impression.
talking about, yeah, we could do that, but
Well, we just
All
take
we
with
got-
the silicone.
Why don't we
material.
duplicate it now?
Duplicate it with the
we
silicone.
could duplicate it with the silicone material. If you got some putty and, stuff.
I don't have any of that now. The polyvinyl siloxane that I use for impressions.
Yeah.
But
that would work.
do you have the hard,
Okay.
well, you got that,
The hard putty.
It'll all work as,
works the same
In
way.
5 minutes.
Works the same way.
It's
Well,
not
let's,
true.
let's make a copy of this trade.
How about,
Yeah,
how about you make an
insurance.
impression on him before he leaves town, so you
I
have
can
a
do that.
backup? Why don't you do that?
Yeah, you can.
Get you a putting wash on him before he leaves town.
Just an impression here before that.
Yeah, give him another impression.
Take you about 15 minutes.
It's easier than doing all this. Not that we're looking for easy.
Okay, I'm gonna, so this stuff is gonna pull off there a little easier.
Yeah, two technicians.
You ever use silicone spray for that same thing, or?
No, I use this stuff, silicone spray isn't thick enough
Okay.
and slick enough. It absorbs right into the model.
I see.
Oh,
I'm not gonna put this on the occlusion, cause I want the occlusion pretty good, so I'm gonna put this on the sides, cause I want this thing to step off and on.
So you're just putting on a second coat now, just to make sure you got
Second
enough.
coat on these windows, cause I want this thing to maybe slide off and on without tearing up the model.
The lab techs that make flexite
Yeah,
partials and that sort of thing, they coat the models with a super glue that soaks into the model but makes this a polished
Cut that off
surface.
the ring
yeah.
there.
Huh?
And cut
Cut
this
this
off.
thing.
And then the flexite material doesn't sink in and trap all that stone film that's on it, makes it hard to finish.
Yeah, right.
So,
Now you'll notice if you've got a model that's been sitting around for a while, it's all dried out, and you wanna make a new appliance, you've gotta soak that model in water, or you've gotta coat it with a little bit of this all coat, yeah. Or you gotta coat it a little bit of all coat before you pull that down, or when you pull off, this is for the soft diagnostic material, because if you don't do that, when you pull it off, a lot of the tops of the crown, the plaster will come right off inside of the appliance.
But if you paint it with alcohol, you don't have to soak it.
Yeah, if you soak it, either soak it in water or paint it with alcohol, and then you won't have that problem.
but you're not doing the occlusals.
Well, in that case, if you had a model sitting around for 6 months or so, and you make another appliance, you paint the whole tube.
Okay.
Because then that thing will pull off without pulling your plaster with it.
Or you could just
Stone.
put water across the occlusal surface.
Soak it
instead.
in water.
Yeah.
You can soak it in water for 4 or 5 minutes,
Uh-huh.
and then take your air and just blow it off so there's not a lot of excess water, and then you can pull it down, it won't do that.
Right.
You gotta do one of those two things, or you just lost your model.
Got it.
Okay, you gotta remember that. And, when you pull these things down,
the thing about,
when you pull these things down, you look at them and you get them to where you wanna pull them out. If you wanna keep that thing real thick, you don't heat that up too much. So now you pull it down and it doesn't really pull in tight against the teeth, okay? You wanna keep the top real thick and you wanna get real thin. You don't heat it too much, and you pull it down, then it's gonna be, it doesn't pull real tight. So now you keep your torch handy, and you just torch right around the teeth. Keep the suction on and torch around the teeth, and it'll suck right in on the teeth. Now the top of it stays real thick, and the edges will be a little thinner, and they'll suck right down on the teeth.
You,
I found that out
he learned that, didn't
doing things the hard way. Yeah, and you wanna keep the top as thick as you can.
you? Your paper? That. That's it. Better.
If you're gonna get into doing these things and make hundreds of these things, you gotta figure out the way to do it easy, fast, until they fit. That's the goal. You don't wanna be messing around with them and spending a whole bunch of time on it.
So you're gonna torch the sides.
I'll show you, I'm gonna pull this down now. On these, it's particularly important to cool the outside off before the inside cools. Now, you can do it three ways. You can do it with the air. You can buy cans to cool and spray, you know. You can just hit those real quick with that cool and spray. You can use this, and then you go over and cool it in the air.
Can I have you put your back up there so I can see that dial? Thank you.
Just cooling this off. Now that side's pretty cool, this side is still pretty hot. Okay. Now we can cool the rest of it. And you do that because if you don't do that, this material cools and it pulls. And so if you don't cool this first and get it pretty stiff, when this stuff cools, it'll pull. Now you go to put this thing in, and it's always tight on the buckle surfaces. You cool this first, and then cool the inside, and then you cut the thing out. They just snap on, and pop on the mount. Okay. The only thing you might have to adjust, depending on how you put this on, the thickness of it, might have to adjust these a little bit. And when this tooth's in lingual inversion, I would almost predict you're going to have a little adjustment to do in here. When you put it in, they're going to say, oh, it pushes right here. Why that is, it's not even for some reason when this stuff cools. It just puts the pressure there. So the common places that we're going to be adjusting is where you got teeth out of the area, and then right along the cervical line down here is where they're going to complain that it pulls. But the last, I don't know, 8 or 10 or 20 of these I've done, they just went. Actually, I've heard anyone that say no. Feels real good. Yeah, it feels really comfortable.
Would you just let it cool on its own at room
Yeah.
temperature
At
at this point?
At this point.
I cool this off, and I do a lot of things. I'll come in and I'm giving somebody anesthetic and I've got an appliance to make. So I'll go back, I'll go back and I'll turn on the heat, and I'll put the appliance in there, I'll give them anesthetic, I'll run back, it's all hot, I'll put the thing in there, suck it down, blow some air on it, run back and do some fillings. Come back after I've got a break between patients, I come back and I cut these things out. And I go back and do another patient, I go back to my lab and polish it, you know. So it's not, time-wise, in my practice, it's not costing me any time. Because what I'm doing these is on the dead time. And I never have dead time in my office.
You don't delegate this to any one of your
No,
staff?
no. Well, sometimes I'll pull them down, and I'll say, you know, cut them out. You know, so the girls go back and cut them out. And I'll say, start to get the polish, but then I do the final polish. They don't, I guess they don't do enough of them. They don't wear it, haven't worn it, and they don't know that final polish, what that feels for the tongue. When you start asking patients how that feels, and you're getting an idea how much you have to trim these things. And now I've got to the point where I can trim them down so they feel real comfortable when I put them in. And I've worn them all. Different heights, different thicknesses, everything. I've worn them all for myself, and I know which ones that feel comfortable. And I figure whatever feels comfortable to me probably feels comfortable to most people. So that's the way I make them. And the big, long extensions down on the gun is just uncomfortable. After a while, they just start irritating you. If you got this stuff down where it's even close to the gums down there, after a while, they just get irritated. Saliva under there. So if you finish them right at the cervical line, they don't get irritated.
And if they are tight, what do you use do you mark them with a mylar paper and put it on?
I ask them where it hits, and usually if you look, especially on the hard appliances, you can see how they blanch a little bit there. You just go in and trim
What
them.
about on the teeth? What if it's tight?
Huh?
On the teeth.
Has to be on the tight. You can see where they kind of look tight. If you get used to looking at them when you snap them on, you can see where they look. You just get an idea what they look like, and then you go in and just trim them out. But they can pinpoint. Usually they can pinpoint where that thing is bothering. You just go back and trim it a little bit and put it back in. The occlusion is the only thing that's important. And a little trimming on the sides, the buckle and lingual, to get it comfortable. It isn't going to change the occlusion. It ain't going to change the way the teeth twist and turn in there because you're not cutting that much to get them comfortable. And you just want them to fit tight enough to stay on. Okay. And if they don't stay on right, if you haven't heated them right, you can go in and right interproximally, you can heat them with the torch and push them with your fingernail and get them to snap on there. You know.
Heat them with the torch outside the mouth, then put it
Yeah, I
in.
wouldn't do it in the mouth too much. I tell people I could do this in your mouth and it's about 1,500 degrees. I don't think they'd like that. They say, well, you can do it out there. It's okay with me. I just talk to people funny like that. It loosens them up. And then there's a,
I might have missed something. Did you say earlier, the source of this particular material?
no, it's the same stuff. Same as hard mouth guard material. Same thing you get from
Buffalo.
Patterson?
Buffalo or Patterson. And
So is it any different than from the Essex material?
It's called thermoplastic. I don't know. This is just stuff I use. I don't care what
So
kind
where
you
do
use.
you get it? This-
I get it from Burkhardt. This is thermoforming material, is all it is. It's, Patterson makes it, Burkhardt makes it,
Lincoln,
So,
Lincoln Dental is a
do
supply.
people muscle test react to different brands of this stuff?
well, very few people have reacted to this stuff. Almost nobody. Maybe 5 people in the years have reacted to this stuff. Now, when you get into orthoacrylics, a lot of people react to the orthoacrylics. But if you can make them out of this stuff and put the top on with composite, they're gonna tolerate this stuff. I found that a lot of people tolerate the Super T for some reason. They can't tolerate anything else. I don't know why.
And what do you use? What are you going to want?
I'm gonna show you the burr that you have to trim these with. You can trim them with other burrs, but there's only one that trims them well. If I can find it in here. Yeah, here it is. These little 3-sided, some of them are 3, some of them are 4-sided burrs for cutting. You familiar with that? And you look at any catalog that makes all your lab burrs, they all have them, one shape or another. Some of them are gold, some of them are silver, some of them are 4-sided, some of them are 3-sided. That's the only thing that trims this stuff right. The only other thing, nothing else will trim this stuff right for getting it off the model, okay? So then you,
Wow. What's it called?
I don't know,
Burr.
it's a burr.
3-sided burr.
3-sided burr
For trimming.
for trimming your vinyl material. This is a vinyl material.
Okay.
So, you take this stuff and always start back here. I don't care where you start. I'm a creature of habit, I guess. Then you go down the outside. There you're gonna finish these things right at the cervical line. So I go down just above the cervical line.
Just gingival to the cervical line, whatever.
European ortho has a wheel burr that works real good for that. A wheel,
We're especially made for this.
yeah.
Trim that out, and then that piece will pop out of there.
Oh, it's working good.
If it is, it's very similar to this. If they make it for just trimming, it's very similar to this.
No, it's a wheel.
Oh, it's a wheel.
Oh,
Well,
I don't like-
I don't like the wheels because you can't get around corners and all that with them. I like a fit because then I can go right around the teeth. A wheel, I can get
It's a-
60% of it, but I can't get that other part
But
with it.
the wheel is only about 1/2 inch diameter.
Yeah, that's still way too big for me.
And you're not destroying the model here too, which I know.
You're hitting a little bit of the model, but
Then you're below.
it's not, it doesn't matter.
It's not in the critical area.
Not in the area. Because all these things are finished at the cervical line.
Sure.
And the more of this stuff you have below that, the harder it is to get off the model. You know, if you trim these to the right place, they're usually pretty easy to get off the model. If you trim them too long or leave too many undercuts, especially on the lingual version teeth, they're really tough to get off. I've got people where they're in such lingual version, I trim them up halfway up the teeth, and when they put it in, they have to put it in on one side and squeeze it together to get it to pop on the teeth. You have to learn how to squeeze it together and pop it on and let it open back up. I think those things never come off when they chew. Those things are locked in and they can chew anything with them. Some of them, they have no undercut. You have a hard time getting them to stick hard enough where they can chew and keep them in when they eat, you know. And those are the ones you gotta heat up and use your fingernail and crimp this stuff into the interproximal areas and try to get them something to hold them on. And I've even taken some people, and I'll take on the buccal surfaces of their molar, a couple of molars and dies, and put a little thin piece of acrylic, microetch, and put a little bit thin piece of acrylic along there, as thin as you can get it, and then these things will just snap in place. Yeah.
I'm not being bothered by here, so.
Along the lingual, the 6 anterior is the only place I'll leave it a little longer than the cervical line. The reason I do that, I want to get as much material in there as I can, because if they're going to break, that's where they're going to break, right in the middle here somewhere. And if they break, they usually break right down from the distal of the cuspid down, and one piece will break off. That's where they're going to break. They always break there. And they break there because you didn't tell them how to brush them and clean them. Because when they hold them to brush them and clean them, they hold them on one side and brush them, and they hold them on the other side. If they hold them like this and clean them, they're going to break in half. So if you forget to tell them how to clean them, they're going to come in and the appliance is going to be broken in half because they squeeze it.
Right.
And this stuff cracks if you squeeze it. It'll give a little bit, but not too much. And if they try to hold that thing tight enough to brush it, holding it on both sides, they're going to break it in half.
Start to drop it and squeeze it.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Turn 90 degrees a little bit.
And once they're broken, you can't fuse them back together, is it?
Yeah, I can put them back together.
Yeah.
I put them back together with Super T. Super T bonds to anything, and Super T will hold. Orthobonic acrylic isn't worth a hoot. Composite isn't worth a hoot. But Super T will bond them back together. And what you do is you get them in, and if they, you put them on the model, if they snap right in place, you're okay. Okay, if they don't bring the model in, you've got some Super T, and they've broken down the middle, and you've destroyed your model, you can put some Super T on those things and stick them together, right where they broke. That's how way you repair partials and all that when they break. And then you pour up the inside, and then you can cut them and put stuff in there and repair them, you know. Super T, I would, you know,
Super glue.
super glue.
Glue,
not
super glue,
T.
yeah.
Super glue.
Crazy glue.
Did you go through that process again?
Super glue, you know, I do so much work with dentures and partials and appliances. If they come in with a piece broke off or a denture broke or something like that, I hook them all together with the super glue. A lot of times with the partials, I don't have a model and I've broken the model and they come in, it's broke. I hold them together with the super glue, let it set, then I pour them up with quick set plaster. Then I can trim them out, fix them with Super T, and then polish them up and they're fine. They hold together. But the Super T is the only thing that will hold them together. It's the only thing that lasts. nothing else will work. So,
So how should they clean this thing?
they brush them with toothpaste and they soak them in hydrogen peroxide.
Okay, but when they're brushing them,
Brush
how
them.
should they hold it?
I'll show you. I'll get this separated and, you got a lab knife handy,
In the first drawer, or that drawer with the yellow.
I like the, I got the lab knives are about this wide, you know, the old,
Mm-hmm.
and that they work. They got the square end and the big blade on it, and they're good for popping this stuff. So now you start working this stuff loose. Okay, and the model's dried out a little bit today. And so,
It's right at the cervical all the way around, and
Yeah.
then beyond that on the lingual, you said, of the
a little
anteriors?
bit longer in the lingual.
Of the
Yeah.
anteriors.
Now it's starting to loosen up. Starting to loosen up a little bit. See how that's starting to loosen up in there? And if you're having a little trouble and they're sticking too much, just go back and pour water around them and do liquid water pouring over them, they'll separate a lot easier.
Is it supposed to be a little rounded, or is it supposed to be a little bit straighted? It's kind of rough a little bit. I think it's because I've only used it once. You haven't let me use a smooth
You're
one, so-
making sure that soaks in, huh?
The other blue one? Which one?
What's that?
He's being
Oh, you got,
humorous.
you got water over
He's
there.
being humorous.
Yeah. Plan to do this so I can get it off without breaking the teeth open.
You're crowding, you're more likely to have broken
Now
teeth,
you see
right?
what happened?
Yeah, you're broke.
So you got
Crowded
anterior,
teeth.
anterior teeth. Also.
No problem.
And so,
So I would like one complication so that we can see how you deal with them.
Yeah.
He could have done it without breaking it, but then we wouldn't have learned as much.
So if you coat the whole model with like clear nail polish, or the latex use thin crazy glue to block up all the porosity in the model. And then you.
yeah, you could do that.
And then you, that's with the
Still
latex, and then you spray it with Pam and all, and it sucks down.
Yeah. you
And
could
then
do
it comes
that.
out clean, and you don't have all the stones stuck in there.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good stuff.
What'd you say?
And then you don't have stones stuck to the.
If you do what?
No, I didn't hear the first of it.
Or either cover the model with either super glue or nail polish, clear nail polish, just to block up the porosity of the model.
Yeah. I used to have a material that I got, a special material for doing that. Stone, it's called stone hardener. Came in a can. I used to wax up all my own crowns and cast all my gold crowns, and so I used stone hardener. And you sprayed the surface, and that's what it did. It hardened the surface and sealed it. And then stone didn't stick to it. Nothing stuck to it at all when you poured out the yesterday. It's probably the same. The pan's probably cheaper.
Well, the PAMS is the lubricant, but
Okay,
you
this
have to
first-
close, seal the pores of the stone.
When you're gonna trim these on the inside, and you put it in, and they're saying that it hurts a little bit on the anterior teeth. This is probably a 704 or something. I don't forget the number. It's a surgical burr, bone cutting surgical burr.
Fisher crosscut.
Yeah, yeah, with a round top on it.
It's a,
It's a surgical crosscut.
it's
for-
a 1553, right?
I don't know what it is. I can't remember the number, but we ordered those, and we got you get them in about 18 of them in a pack or something like that. I keep them back in the lab, and when they get dull, I just pull out another one. And so when you have to adjust the inside, and it's usually the 6 anterior teeth. And it's usually the 6 anterior teeth, and we've got some stone in there, so I can use this thing and go in there and it'll clean that stone out real quick. And then the edges, you can get two sizes. You can get two sizes of these fine cutting burrs. And they trim this stuff real nice and leave it real smooth. Okay. So. And they're easier to use, I believe, than the big heavy cutters. They cut the best. And we're gonna finish these same height we did on the diagnostic appliance. The only time you might change that is if there's no undercuts whatsoever in the posterior here. You might do full coverage on the front one just to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't pop on and off. But the more coverage you have up here, and when they're chewing, the more chance you got of getting the front teeth sore.
Say that again.
The more coverage you got over the front here, and when they're chewing on this stuff gives a little bit, moves a little bit. When they're chewing, a lot of people, if they've been locked back and you unloose them, they start chewing forward, like that. Because the first movement in chewing is an anterior movement, and then you go into lateral. Well, they put pressure on here. When they do that, they move this thing, and they're pulling against the front teeth. And if they don't have big undercuts on the buckle of these molars and vise back here to hold this in place, then they're going to do that more. Sometimes in those people, you either make a unilateral, one on each side, or you cut this out right across the top of the teeth, and you tell them, only hold it like this, because you're going to break that thing in half.
You ever shore it up on the inside, up on the lingual,
Yeah, you can
another
put
layer?
super key in there, but you know, if you ever worn one of these things, your tongue, really, the thicker it is, the worse your tongue it feels. And the harder time you have talking and using one. So the thinner they are, that you can keep them on the inside, the better off they are.
Say that one more time.
Well, the thicker they are on the inside,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
less room there is for the
Right,
tongue.
right,
The
right,
harder
right.
time they have talking and
Sure,
blaring
sure,
and all
sure,
that.
sure.
See? So less,
Same thing.
but if you have to, you have to, you know. And some people it bothers worse than some.
All right.
You know, the ladies that want to talk and everything, my goodness. They say, can you cut everything out on the outside? Yeah, you know. And I mean, I said, well, I could do that, but it's going to break them. I'm going to have to make you a new one every month. And it's going to cost you $700 or $800. And I said, well, maybe I can wear this after all. I'll try this way. If you start talking money, they say, I think I'll try it your way. And everybody, I have some people say, I don't think I ever wear that. And some people say, I want to feel, but I don't care what it's like. Just put it in there. I'll wear it. Everybody, you know, everybody's different, you know. But you can see how nice that leaves it. It leaves it nice and smooth when you cut with this. And if you use the big heavy ones, they don't cut that smooth. They leave it jagged, and they don't cut as well. These things really cut these things nice. I've had people come in with appliances that people have made for them, and they're down here 3 or 4 millimeters down in the gums, they're straight across there, they're real thick, and I don't think they're comfortable. So I put them at the cervical line, and I try to contour these things to the shape of the teeth, and people don't mind wearing them.
No, you try to taper the cervical into the
Yeah,
gum line,
right,
right?
yeah, right into your, I'll
Right,
taper,
right,
see how I
Mhm.
taper that in,
Scallop it in.
scallop it in, it just feels more comfortable, feels more natural to them. It's hard enough for people to get used to wearing these things. Why do we want to make them more uncomfortable? Let's make them as comfortable as they can be.
So when you get a phone call to your office, you have your staff advise them to use a, nail file or something if it's an area that they might think they can take care
I'm
of.
going to tell them to get some emery paper and rub it on there. It's a little sore.
Okay.
Just get some emery paper. It's flexible, and just rub it across there. And it'll smooth it up to where they can tolerate it. But the last thing I ask them after we get them all adjusted is run your tongue around it and tell me if it's smooth.
Right.
Tell me if it's real smooth. Don't tell me you think you can wear it. Tell me if it's smooth. You can say, well, that's okay with me. I said, no, tell me, is that really smooth? And they say, they're not going, oh yeah, well, there's a spot here. I said, okay, if I don't adjust that spot, you're going to be back tomorrow, or you're going to have to drive in and see me because your tongue's going to get sore. It doesn't take much to get your tongue sore. And people are funny. You finish their appliance down, and then they'll come back the next day and they'll look at it and they'll say, well, this thing really isn't balanced. Look, you see it's thinner here and it's thicker here. And that's not really balanced in my mouth. And I say, well, it's the bite I'm worried about.
Yeah.
But I'll even that up for you, just to keep you happy.
Well, $20.
So you try to finish them symmetrical, because they'll go home and they'll just study this thing. I mean, they'll come and tell you everything about this thing when they come back.
It's theirs now.
It's theirs now, and they're gonna find out what that thing is. You got a rag wheel over there.
And you deliver this the same way as the soft splint, right?
Except you really, when you put this in, you really spend a lot of time balancing it. You want
Right.
4 centric stops.
This is like the final appliance, yeah.
You want 4 centric stops, then you adjust all the extrusions, AP, laterals,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
put that in.
How much time do you allow for delivering the hard appliance?
30 minutes.
And you'll still want 4 centric stops, even if you, for example, had the lower left molars missing. And
Well, I mean, you can't get it there, so you try to get as close to that as you can, yeah.
so,
If they have a canted occlusal plane, you use a hard appliance to correct them.
plane, canted occlusal plane.
Yeah.
You
You don't use a soft one to correct them, right?
can start
You start with a
one.
soft, but they won't tilt that way
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you
So
can.
yeah.
So in that case, you won't have 4 on each side. You will have a heavy.
Well, yeah, if you're trying to cant the maxilla, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you'll have them heavy on one side.
Right, right. But the other side will be totally
Yeah,
discluded.
yeah, and you do a little bit at a time, you don't
Right.
just cut it out 3 millimeters or
Right,
2
right,
millimeters.
right.
You cut it just barely out,
1
and you have it
millimeter,
back,
yeah.
then you cut it out, and it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Just before they get the headache.
Well, if they come in with a headache, you say, well, let's see, let's get this balanced and let you settle for a while, and then we'll start doing this again. But, that's why you use a diagnostic appliance to start with, because you want to get rid of as much of the symptoms as possible before you go to the hard appliance,
Mhm.
you know, because they're gonna respond a lot better. And I've just found that in most people, not everybody, but in most people, they respond faster to the diagnostic appliance, the softer diagnostic appliance, than they do a hard appliance. The muscles relax real fast, like his son. I mean, he couldn't translate yesterday. Last night at 11:30, he was just full translating. His jaw was just all over the place. You know, that's only a few hours. It wouldn't relax and do that as fast with a hard appliance, because his teeth are still chewing into that hard surface. They're still getting his muscles more fired up.
Mm.
You know. For most people, that's
So-
not a hard and fast
right,
rule.
Right, but that,
Because some people react just the opposite you think.
that soft appliance is more or less like that cotton roll, right?
Yeah,
In terms of the dampening effect on the
yeah,
equation.
yeah. And like I tell them, this isn't for diagnosis. This is not a treatment appliance. This is a diagnostic appliance. We're still trying to figure out where your problems are.
Mhm.
We should get a lot of relief wearing this, but we're still trying to figure out really what.
You still call this diagnostic?
No, I know, this is a
This is a
treatment
treatment appliance, yeah.
First one's a we call it, like I said, by this time, we know pretty much what we're gonna have to do for it.
Mhm.
And I probably didn't coat this enough with that, with this stuff, because we still got some stone stuck in here.
No, just for the crowding.
Yeah,
So over relieving that is gonna help him anyway.
yeah. You're gonna have to relieve that area more than any other area anyway, I think. What comes up most of the time.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing this thing, that lower interiors was where the most frequent issues were.
That's what the issue is.
And then I didn't have that issue after I went to the galp appliance.
No,
Yeah.
but with the galva appliance, you got metal, and you're gonna depress the teeth if you wear it for any length of time. I had a guy in that had been in a galva appliance for like 25 years. And every time he had a problem, they just added to the top. And his second molars were about 1 millimeter above the gum line. The occlusal surface of the second molars were 1 millimeter above the gum line. And then it went from there up to the anteriors. And he said, what do I do now? I said, you wear that thing until you die. You know? You've been wearing it for 22 or 24 years, you're stuck with it now. He said, nobody told me I was depressing my teeth.
Yeah, I'll see you during the week.
Won't they come up if you take it off? Or did the upper come down with it?
I don't know.
I don't think the upper came down with it though. If you cut the lower,
He just kept adding plastic to it. I said, well,
I mean, if you,
but erupting those teeth at his age, he's in his fifties or sixties now, I thought was pretty, gonna be pretty tough.
Yeah, you could.
Might
If
do
you
it.
put the reverse curve on it.
Reverse curve around.
Like just out working.
Well, yeah, but you're gonna have to use elastics and pull it
Right,
up.
right.
Yeah.
Same with people with bite tabs, I suppose, over the years have been shown, how to,
Yeah.
in office.
But with wearing this, where you got the anteriors covered here, I've never had anybody depress their posterior teeth. I've had people in them for 16 years. Had one gal 17 years, another gal 16. Another gal, just saw her, she's been in appliance for 15 years. They haven't depressed any of their posterior teeth.
Now, is that still the case if you have to cut out the incisal coverage on the lower anterior? Like you only have lingual coverage on the lower anterior?
What do you mean on the appliance?
Yeah, yeah.
But you're still hitting the cuspid.
Yeah.
You're cutting the top off, but you're cutting this top edge off here, but you still got.
So the cuspid, the incisal edge is still covered?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You leave as much of that cuspid coverage as you can.
Okay. Okay.
And whenever you can, if you want to keep C2 in place, when you add to the tops of these things, you try to get equilateral excursion on both cuspids
Okay.
when they go into their excursions. If they go 2 millimeters even, try to get 2 millimeters on both sides. Cuspid exclusion.
Yeah.
Then C2 will probably stay in place.
Repeating that one more, bilateral cuspid
In other words,
exclusion.
You put them in,
You
and
put the-
they're gonna slide 2 millimeters and get this contact, cuspid contact. So now, you put them in there, and they're gonna slide 2 millimeters and get this cuspid in contact.
Before they get to the
Equal
cuspid.
contact, yeah. Because your cuspid is determined laterally how your C1 is positioned at the base of your neck and how C2 rotates. So cuspid contact is going to stabilize C1, and if you got a roll in your head, C1 always moves to the roll. So if you get rid of the roll, then where the cuspid hits is going to determine where that atlas is going to stay put right there, and then it's going to determine whether your axis is going to rotate.
So you want 2 millimeters of movement and then hitting the
Well, 1
cuspid.
millimeter, whatever it takes, same on both sides.
Is that what,
Ideally, it's about less than a half a millimeter.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes
I
more
mean,
sense to me.
You want to
More
close.
immediate exclusion.
You want to close in centric stops, and then immediately in exclusion you want to hit. But sometimes they're going to move to 2 millimeters before you can get that, depending on the person. Some people it's right there. That's great.
Well, since we're building it up, we have the choice to make it whatever we want, don't we?
Yeah, but sometimes they're not symmetrical.
Right.
Oh,
The
okay.
mouth
Like
is
for
not
example, if they're ortho crowding or a cuspid lockout
symmetrical.
situation.
Yeah.
does that mean that ideally it is cuspid exclusion and without any, say, further posterior exclusion at the same time that cuspid is in exclusion? In other words, ideally you'd like to limit it to the cuspid
You
exclusion.
never have first or second molars touching
On
at
lateral.
lateral shift.
Yeah.
You get those out of there.
And then the buys may or may not,
Yeah, buys may or may not. You get cuspid, first buy, second buy, never the molars in lateral excursion.
because that'll set up the
Yeah,
interference.
yeah, sets up interference. Sometimes in a natural dentution, you can get the whole side. There's always heavier cuspid to buy, very light on the molars ever. Biggest problem with perial pockets around buys and molars is when they go into excursion, they got one spot they hit, and they've been there for 15 years, and they got a 6 or 7 millimeter pocket. Body cannot tolerate that. If you don't have general vertical loss of bone, you got a pocket somewhere, it's always occlusal. You got to figure out where that occlusal is coming from. Same thing with the appliances. The same rules for normally adjusting the occlusion, the same thing for the appliances. Centric stops and proper lateral excursions and anterior excursions. doesn't change. It's just that when they come into you and their bite's all screwed up, they've never had that. Now you're trying to build it in for them. You keep it there long enough for everything to change, and when everything's changed and settled down as much as possible, then you can go to finishing the case. But scares me now with litigation that goes on in dentistry, because years ago when I did that to people, it was their fault. But now, with good lawyers, it's my fault. And people know how to get good lawyers. So I never really got into trouble with a few people, but I ended up doing that too. But I don't like doing that. I just try to get it as close to right as possible. If we think we're perfect, we're kidding ourselves. If we think all these things are going to go just the way we want them to, we're kidding ourselves. But the goal is to get as close as you can. Do the best you can for the patient. And that will change with the ability of your knowledge to increase, and probably the amount of courses you go to, and then the amount of it you're willing to go back into your practice and do. You can go to courses forever if you go back to your practice and do it, you know.
So
That's
the connection with the perio pocket bone breakdown and the interference is it because the patient is constantly trying to get that interference out and
yeah, and when somebody
they grind it out.
they're either trying to grind it out or they're trying to move around it, and so the muscle pattern is always upset.
But as far as the breakdown, the bone breakdown,
well, they're always going to hit that, and they're going to work on it at night in their sleep, and they're always going to hit that, and they're going to gradually beat the bone enough to have a pocket. Either that, or they're going to break the porcelain off.
This is where the antibiotic approach or the ozone approach is going to fall short.
Yeah.
Because you got to get the axial loading correct.
Yeah.
You got to get the internal rotation out of the way so that
Yeah.
the blood supply could be even right and left,
Yeah.
and all the teeth and the arch gets an equal shot.
All that you can do, and
Yeah.
then your ozone therapy is great.
Right. And I think my personal feeling is that, we were talking about this last night, that you shouldn't do cavitation surgery until this part is all done.
Well, that's ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I put off that.
You can only do as much as the patient will let you do.
Right.
You can offer all kinds of service, and the patient's gonna say, well, I'll do this and I won't do that, or let's do this and I won't do that.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But we always
Some patient-
write in the chart what we see and what we recommend.
Some patients want their implant first,
Yeah.
and I tell them, you gotta write the foundation.
The patient says, I got $2,000. Now, how much is it gonna cost me? This is $8,000 or $10,000. They say, well, I'll take this first,
Yeah.
and then we'll go to this. And that's what they think.
Yeah.
They're not made of money.
Right.
Most of the people that come in with a neck of problems are people that don't have any money. They don't even want to get a filling because it costs too much money, and they have all this problem, and so they'll opt for a diagnostic appliance and wear it forever and get them out of their neck problems and back problems and all that. But a whole lot of these people, you're not going to go any farther than the diagnostic appliance, because that's all they've got money for, and that's all you're going to accept for you to do. But it's a great service to them,
Mm-hmm.
because even wearing a diagnostic appliance after a year or so, they get all kinds of healing in the joints and in the muscles and the fascia and the tendons, all kinds of healing. And then they can take being beat up a little bit. And if they got that appliance to wear at night, they get enough relaxation, the body heals. You know, we were built to handle stress. God built us to handle stress. But when we add 6 stresses, one on top of the other, pretty soon we get to the point where we've gone past our ability to cope. And then there the people that got problems.
Yeah. And I asked a question about a patient of mine where she's 70 years old,
Yeah.
scoliosis,
Yeah.
and she's got, side bend patterns where eye
Yeah.
goes this way and occlusion goes this way. And she's got a tilted, easily tilted, second molar so that the distal end is way up.
Yeah.
And, missing first molars on the lower so that
It
the uppers
interrupted
got
it, yeah.
extrusion.
Yeah.
On a case like that, you still start her with a, diagnostic appliance first, or do you have to level out the super erupted,
If you-
thing before you can
It
do that?
depends on whether you can get some balancing in the diagnostic appliance.
I mean, you have to have a big dip in the diagnostic
Well,
appliance to get
the
to
upper,
balance.
you cut the upper tooth off as far as you can cut it off.
Yeah, and
As
level
far as
that.
you can cut it off and
Uh-huh.
level, as far as you can.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna put a temporary crown on there.
Oh, well, cut it down and get it as much as you
Yeah,
can.
yeah, yeah.
And then, but
It's too far
she'll probably never have to go farther than the diagnostic appliance.
Uh-huh.
Level all that out for her, put that in there and have her wear it at the start, 24 hours a day, and just take it out to eat, and then after a while, you go back to night wear, and at her age, she'll probably do fine.
So you basically just you establish the vertical using the arm reflex
Arm reflex,
test,
yeah.
right? And then you jiggle them and you close them into their mandibular arc,
In
right?
other words,
You
you're
take a
just-
bite
you're
there,
just taking a bite without.
you mount the
doing much
case,
like it,
you mount the case, the upper to HIP,
Yeah,
and the lower to that, arced bite, right?
right.
And then you build the lower appliance to that vertical,
Yeah.
right?
And it depends
You
on
do
what's,
this-
and it depends on what's going on in her joint. Is she total lockout for years?
Yeah.
Or does her joint operate a little bit, you know?
Uh-huh.
And, you can start out with a slight pivot in there, try to unlock the joint if they need it, and then after a week or two, you go in and level the whole thing. Okay? now
Okay, so you
open-
keep the upper lingual cuts of the first molars heavier on the pivot. I mean, you just
Yeah,
touch the
yeah.
medial lingual cuts of the upper molars on the lower
Yeah,
appliance, you
yeah,
call that a
right.
pivot appliance, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
You're
you can
basically
get-
depressing.
Wherever you can get the pivot.
Right, you're doing that basically to decompress the TM joint,
Yeah. that's-
right? Okay.
And you got a lever, the wrong kind of a lever. In other words, it should compress the joint more.
Right, right.
Because the fulcrum points back here, and you get in physics, leverage, yeah, you're ahead of the fulcrum rod. And so it should fulcrum back and make the condyles worse. But because we're a biologic human being that has a brain, they will unlock.
Okay, all right.
And I took courses where the guy said, well, pivot appliances don't work because look, here's your fulcrum point, here's where the pivot is, here's what you're trying to open up, this and back here, fulcrum point, therefore it's gonna fulcrum this way, so pivot appliances don't work. I said, yeah, that's strange.
It works.
I've used hundreds of pivot appliances and they've all worked. You know. And then I went to kids and I built up first and second molars and they're way full. And they're open 4 or 5 millimeters in the front and they come back the next day and they're end to end. I did not depress all their primary second molars in a day.
So they're pivot this way.
The only way they can unlock would be to pivot this way. And so I got a classic pivot appliance that doesn't work with straight physics. I got a classic pivot appliance that works fantastic in the human body because you got a brain that works and you got muscles that want it that way.
Now you're talking about somebody that has both sides locked up.
Both sides, yeah.
If you may have one side, then you're
You
gonna
gotta
approach it a little
pivot- you
differently,
got-
right?
You gotta pivot on both sides though. You can't pivot just one side.
I see. So the muscles will relax after
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Let everything release on
After it's
both
all
sides.
relaxed, then you put them into the centric stops and keep them vertical. And sometimes if they've got a locked out disc and you want everything to heal, you go past the vertical that they're gonna test to. You're gonna give that, unlock that disc, give it a chance to heal up there, and then lower them back down so that disc will stay on there. After you get some healing in that joint, then everything will stay together. It's been beat up by going the wrong way, and now you gotta over accentuate it to get it to heal. You know, so if you open up all that way and finish them there, then everything heals, they wanna be closed, and all of a sudden, you got them open here and you're testing them and they're going weak. Because you're past their normal physiologic limit for their normal activity to get the joints healed, but if you can't keep them there. Most of the people that I'm dealing with disc problems After everything heals for about a year, 12, 14 months, I'm closing them down at least halfway from where they started. Okay, and they're just fine. Now I'm getting into the physiologic range that the brain wants to operate in. But I'm compromising one area to treat another area.
So you give them the relief by opening them up beyond their
Yeah,
normal
yeah.
freeway space, for example.
You can talk to me all you want to, that pivot appliances don't work because it's against physics. I can tell you, I've used hundreds of them and they've all worked.
There's a more esoteric
So-
explanation to that,
Yeah.
and that is that classical physics and mechanics doesn't explain the biological system.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're a biological being,
And-
functioning
and-
biological being.
Yeah.
But we like to treat people like they're cars.
Right.
Put the
It doesn't
gas
work
in and
that
the
way.
engine starts.
Yeah,
You get into nutrition, it's not just putting the gas in and the engine starts, everything's related.
right. The body actually, the biology actually works more like liquid crystals in quantum physics, where you
Yeah.
change one point and every point changes.
Yes.
It's how your cell phone screen
Yeah,
shifts.
but
Sure.
also, it's working on a principle of sensory deprivation rather than innovation. The pivot point being the primary sensory input and erasing everything else.
Yeah,
And the erasing of everything else is more important than when that one
that's,
point.
that's true.
So
All the
it's-
sensory perception changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a sensory deprivation
But-
device, not
But
It's a-
eventually you gotta
it's
get
a
back to normal.
Noxious sensory deprivation.
Yeah, yeah. But eventually you gotta get back to normal
Yeah,
perception.
And that takes months sometimes. Actually, you have to
Yeah.
recapture the disc.
That's
you
the
know.
understatement, it takes months.
Is that because you have to recapture the disc? And-
At first you're trying to recapture the disc. If you can't recapture the disc, then you gotta keep it open long enough so the tendon will form a pseudodisc.
Right.
And they'll start translating. In other words, the linite fossa will remodel, the beaking will go away in the top of the condyles, and the tendon will form a pseudodisc, just like a callus on the arm.
Right.
And then
That
af-
was my theory.
And then after that happens, then you can
You can
start,
function
then
on
you can
that
start thinking about doing
pseudotendon,
some
yeah.
functional changes
Right,
that,
right.
that'll stabilize in the body.
Right.
But if you go in too soon, and don't give that a chance to all take place, you're gonna run into trouble with patients.
How often do you see them once they go on the heart appliance?
Every 10 to 12 months.
Eh,
10 to 12 weeks.
Every 10 to 12
10 to
weeks,
12
okay.
weeks, 10 to 12 weeks. Well, I just finished the guy, one of the guys I showed you with the great long teeth. First time I put his appliance in like 3 weeks, the diagnostic appliance, he ground that thing to pieces. And so I made him another one, and then it took him about 8 weeks, and he ground that thing to pieces. And I made him another one, about 4 months, he ground that thing to pieces. And after about 8 or 9 months, I made him a heart appliance, and he chewed the back of that thing off in no time. And I added to his heart appliance. After about 2 years, he didn't grind anything off anywhere. The only way he breaks his appliance is to step on it or something, you know. He quit
Took that
all
long
that.
to get
Now
his
he
ba-
doesn't, now he doesn't break anything up. He doesn't chew and grind, his neck feels good, his back feels good, all I gotta do is keep him balanced at the right vertical. As soon as his vertical changes just a little bit, he's out of it.
So
It
do
took him
you
that
ever
long to
wonder,
get it took him that long to get his mineral reserves up.
Yeah, he went into, did a lot of nutritional stuff. He started treating candida, he started clearing his gut out. He went to a naturopath and did stuff she said, and went to me and I did that stuff, and he's now his whole body's re-regulated, and he's doing really good. Never felt so good in his life.
How many heart appliances did he break up?
Oh, he wore those things for, how long has it been? It's been 9 years, and he's probably gone through 3 heart appliances, but he's broke them up and I've repaired them dozens of times.
Do you have to take new models each time, or you
No, I keep the models.
you keep the old models
I
and
put
just?
him on the model, and he'll chip them out, break them off. I put him on the model, build him back up. He'll come back in, he's broken off, and I'll build him back up. And it was,
So you didn't have to make a whole
it was
new one
every-
all over
It was
again.
every 2 or 3 weeks to start with. And before, and then, when we got around to finally finishing, it was about every 3 or 4 months. The last time before we finished, it was close to 6 months before we had to touch his appliances. Okay.
So are they breaking in the lingual, or are they just wearing down on the posterior?
Yeah, they break down, right down the middle, and the lingual pops off usually, sometimes the buckle. They start fracturing it, the stuff gives it, they're so hard on it, the stuff frays and fractures, so I cut out the fracture lines, put super T on there, you know, and put him back.
This is a big stocky guy.
Well, he's taller than I am, he's probably 6'1", probably
Uh-huh.
200 pounds,
Yeah.
not real stocky. And when I first met him, his muscles were mush.
I mean, so can you tell ahead of the time who this kind of patients are? Like, what clues can you give us
Well, look,
for
you look at,
anticipating something?
you look at the facets on their teeth, how they've been wearing their teeth.
Uh-huh.
You look at the facets. If they've been grinding, you ask them, when are you sore? In the morning when you break up, when you get up, is it?
Most of these
After
people
the
don't
day.
feel anything. I mean, their teeth are so down to the gum line, they don't feel anything.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of a patient. But a lot of them, you look at, if you get them before then, you look at wear facets on their teeth. You ask them, they'll tell you, do you grind a lot? Oh, yeah, I'm grinding all over that. Do you clench it? Yeah, I clench my teeth all the time. They know. Most
Or-
of them know.
And then how they feel when they get out of bed. Maybe they feel fine in bed, but once they get up, feet on the ground, oh, my back is, I'm
Yeah,
still
well,
really sore.
They've been grinding all night, you know. And if they're a clencher, their temporalis is the worst muscle. You know.
I've had
If they're a
some
grinder, it's
peppers where they.
usually it's their neck. Some, a little bit of temporalis, and usually their neck, back, you know, because they've been going all like all night. When they clench, it's one set of muscles that's firing up, the masseters and the temporalis, you know. I don't know how many dozen people I've had yet. This tooth, I gotta have a root canal or something, to take it out, you know, because it really hurts. It's referred pain from the masseters. or the temporalis.
Often that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and you gotta just be, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. Oh, yeah, I know, I can touch it. You know, well, it's not your tooth.
It's the occlusion.
It's the occlusion. And then I say, well, and I'm usually there for a sec, they're using me to be a second opinion,
Right,
because some
right.
guy told me they need a root canal.
Right.
And so I take them, I say, oh, your tooth hurts, huh? I go, that hurt? They say, they jump, I say, yeah, that hurts, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's referring, doesn't that make your tooth hurt? Oh, yeah. Let's push out for a while. So we push out for a while, and I take it off, now does your tooth still ache? No, my tooth quit hurting, you know, I mean. And they say, how'd you figure that out? So,
Why
everybody
don't
on
they
it.
teach it in dental school?
So let's, if we get back to Joseph and his appliance. This, I remounted this at the same bite that you took.
Okay, so now, see that pops on there good.
Now I need to raise this up the 4 millimeters.
Yeah, and then on him, you know, he's a long ways away. I don't know who's gonna get to adjusting him. You either put super T on there or composite. You test him for this stuff, and if this works, you use that, or you put super T on there. One of the two, test him, which one he tests out based on. Put height balance him out real good. I don't know how often he's gonna be able to.
Because of, now, if we were gonna, I know what I would do if we were gonna do him, if I'm gonna do him, and after he finishes his therapy splint, then I know that I'm gonna do his muscle testing again and find out how much what vertical dimension needs to be open, and we determine all that information based on where his new jaw position is, his new condyle position.
And he loosened up, opened up fast.
So if we were gonna try, would you consider having him come back today and us try and doing the hard one today, or is that,
Oh, yeah,
that's not gonna,
no, that'd be good,
okay.
that'd be real good.
Do I remount it then at the position that you get him at today, or is this close enough for the mount?
Well, let's put him on there, right on there, with super T at the 4 millimeters.
Okay.
Okay.
And then when he comes in, we'll just balance it.
Okay, so I'll have to adjust this up for
Well, you set that to 4 millimeters or whatever.
Right.
And
4 above the 0.
You're probably gonna add a millimeter and a half or so, well, you have to add to that to get that height, I think.
You mean subtract? I mean, this is one, you
Well,
would
he's
take,
gonna-
you add 2.5 to this 1.5 now, right?
Well, he goes up to 4 millimeters.
The record,
Right.
the
It's
silicone
4
record
total.
material was a
Yeah,
certain
4
thickness.
total.
What, say it again?
the silicone mounting material was a certain thickness to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was he had his closed, his bite was closed, he was touching.
His bite was closed, you could see right through that glue. The gal, when we did hers, had a little opening, but his was right down.
Oh, okay.
You can see right there.
So that's why if we do it.
It wasn't
full-
real even, but you had spots where you bit right through it. So right at 4.
So it's gonna be 4 below that 0, right?
Yeah.
So how thick is it now that it's been processed?
That's how much we're gonna be
Is it
adding.
like 2.5 millimeters?
That's what we're gonna add to it.
No, is that 4 from this surface or 4 from the surface with the
Top of the
splint
teeth,
on? With
bottom of the
splint
Four
on?
with the splint on.
4 with the splint on?
No, no.
No, 4 with the
No.
splint off.
Yeah, the 4 millimeters of paper.
He closed on.
All the way
He
on
closed
the back.
onto the bite record.
Yeah.
That paper is gonna be
And
the
that's
thickness,
through.
is that correct? That pink paper is
And-
supposed to,
We put this paper
4
over
millimeters?
his first molars, and we know that he's gotta be 4 millimeters off. We mounted him to his normal bite, now he's
Right.
up 4 millimeters.
Right, right.
So now we put 4 millimeters back here.
So we took the bite record and at 0,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was closing
and
on
then
his teeth.
we opened up at the vertical dimension of the paper at his first molars.
So now
which were-
take, so
So I
now
was up
take,
at
now,
4.
now keep it at 4,
Uh-huh.
pop off the appliance.
How thick is that appliance, would you figure right now, is 2.5 millimeters?
Now, now I put this on there. Both sides, right at the first molars. Does that thing hit?
Yeah.
So that's where it goes. See that?
Cool.
That's where it goes.
You with
So-
it?
And so
You're not 100%.
No,
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 no, this is-
I don't know how to account for the material thickness. I mean,
what material thickness?
the splint thickness.
He was through it.
In this
No,
case,
wait,
it
he
was.
did right
through-
through.
No,
Let's do it.
what he
Let's
made,
do
he's
it
talking
all
about
the
the
way
appliance that he made, the hard appliance.
This
How thick is that hard appliance?
Oh, no, but look at, here's where his bite goes.
Doesn't matter.
There's where his bite goes.
Okay,
right?
okay, okay.
So now,
So, yeah, you're just adding the amount
It's only a certain
of 4
thickness,
millimeter
so
less the
we have to
thickness
do
of
that.
Not
so
related
now,
to
so
this.
To get
now
it to
that's,
4
we take
millimeters.
this out and that's
Yeah.
where he is.
Yeah.
Oh, you
See,
just,
now
or
put
just
the
add to
hard
it until
appliance
it's,
back on there.
And
fills in the
right-
space.
Right.
Approximately.
Put it on there.
Or in a
put 'em
arch space.
together,
Now the hard
bam.
appliance is on there.
Yeah,
So now
Okay.
that's how much.
That's
we
how
add.
much you add, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We don't
We're clear.
care if it's
We're
2.5
clear. Yeah, 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 yeah,
or
it doesn't really
whatever.
matter, right.
Forget
That's
measuring
what
it,
you
don't need
fill
to
in.
measure it, it's all right
And-
there.
Actually, when you look at this thing, now look at his front teeth. 1 millimeter overbite and overjet.
Yeah, and he's still coming forward, I'll bet.
Now, he's still gonna come forward a little bit. We haven't moved him forward, but
That's
look
pretty
at it.
exciting.
When you know the front teeth are about right, you know that you're gonna be really close with that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, if you did that and his lower teeth were open 3 millimeters or 2 millimeters, you know you're treating the joints, because that's gonna be an unnatural opening. But like the guy that was in the wheelchair, when I finished him, I can tell you about how far his front teeth were apart.
When you finished.
Holy smoke.
When I leveled him, and he got up and walked out of the office. in a
You can
wheelchair.
actually build up that much with super T?
I built up composites. He came in built that high, but the guy didn't know where level was. The guy built them up,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he was
okay,
sitting
yeah,
like
yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
he was sitting like this and like this.
Uh-huh.
Well, when the guy got into there, he felt pretty good, and he had this guy was 6'5" or 6'6", big guy, and he had this great big stick that he had carved out, and he could push himself out of his wheelchair and hobble over to a chair and sit down. You know, then he'd go back to his wheelchair. So I took what this guy had built him, put him on the Aculiner and leveled him. Muscle test him, I'd opened him 2 millimeters on the Aculiner, because that's 2 millimeters more vertical, what it says, and I put that stuff in
Based on
there.
the muscle testing.
That's on the arm reflex testing. I put that thing in there, I said, bite down. He bit down, yeah, that feels good. I said, okay, get out of the chair. He hopped out of the chair and grabbed his wheelchair and ran out of the office.
Now, refresh my memory now.
If that doesn't catch you a little bit, there's something wrong with you.
Refresh my memory, and when you took this thing here, all you did was you tell him, don't close yourself, let me jiggle your jaw, let me arc your mandible
Yeah.
to where its passive closure is,
Yeah.
right? You close down until it touches anywhere in the
mouth.
mouth,
He
right?
probably had 2 or 3 places where he really hit.
right, right.
Sometimes
right,
it's one.
Right.
And
Now,
even
you
if
don't-
it's a fraction of a millimeter, it
Yeah,
doesn't
it
make
doesn't
any
matter,
difference.
right.
Yeah.
But, so if that's the ca- and you predetermine that you need to raise that by that degree of 3 by
Well,
3.
I measured
fold into-
this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if you have a ortho case, like someone who's got, overly retracted front teeth,
Yeah, you're
because the
gonna- you're
bicuspid
gonna run
retraction,
out.
you're gonna run right into that front tooth, right? And do you stop there? Like,
Well,
people who have these
Sometimes
toe
you
day
have
and
to-
Like
central-
sometimes you have to move
Yeah,
it.
lingual
Yeah,
incline.
Sometimes you have to move 'em out.
You're gonna open him up farther than he should be, and then you're gonna put wires on it, you're gonna move him out of the way, and then his jaw's gonna come forward.
But in the initial diagnostic appliance though, your front teeth are where they are, your two
Yeah.
centrals are where they are.
But these kids
Huh?
are young people.
Joseph was pretty locked,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to adjust his appliance yesterday, his soft appliance, considerably at the interior so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he wouldn't hit him so
So he
soon.
could
Uh-huh.
slide.
Somebody,
Right,
I
right.
gave him once he had a couple of millimeters, then
Yeah.
that's,
Okay.
I was
Give
told
him
that
2
was
mil-
enough.
you get him 2 millimeters I mean, this condyle isn't gonna move 4 millimeters.